The Galactic Empire was used to getting its way. For centuries, its fleets had expanded across the stars, swallowing up civilizations with the ease of a tidal wave sweeping over a shoreline. Planets were brought to heel in days, systems in weeks. Resistance was always fleeting. It was simply a matter of time before everyone bent to the Empire's will. So, when a small, uncharted planet called Earth appeared on their radar, no one in the Empire's vast bureaucratic machine even blinked. Just another world to add to the collection. Just another species to conquer. Or so they thought. It began like any other conquest. A single scout ship was dispatched to Earth to collect data on its inhabitants. The initial report was predictable. A primitive species with limited technology, barely capable of exploring their own solar system. Their weapons were laughable compared to the Empire's, and their defenses were non-existent. There was no reason to see humans as anything more than an afterthought. The scout ship lingered for a few days, gathering information on Earth's infrastructure, its population, its habits. Everything seemed to check out. And then, as it prepared to leave, the scout ship encountered something unexpected. A signal, a message, to be precise, sent from Earth. It wasn't encrypted or masked. It wasn't even sophisticated. But what it lacked in complexity, it made up for in boldness. To the Galactic Empire, the message began. We know you are watching. Leave now and never return. This is your only warning. The crew of the scout ship laughed. Warnings? From a planet that didn't even have faster-than-light travel? It was absurd. The message was logged and sent back to Imperial Command along with the rest of the data, a small footnote in an otherwise routine assignment. The scout ship departed, confident that Earth would soon fall in line like every other world before it. But then the ship didn't return. Days turned into weeks, and there was no word. No distress signal. No wreckage. It was as if the ship had simply vanished. Imperial Command was irritated but not overly concerned. Accidents happened, after all. Space was vast and unpredictable. Still, a follow-up mission was ordered this time, a small fleet of 5 ships, armed and ready, to investigate Earth and retrieve whatever had gone wrong. The fleet entered Earth's orbit with the precision and confidence of an empire that had never known defeat. From the skies above, they scanned the planet, searching for the scout ship or any trace of what might have caused its disappearance. Instead, they found nothing but static. Every attempt to communicate with the planet was met with silence. And then, just as the commander of the fleet was about to order a landing, the same signal from before was broadcast once again. Leave Earth, the message repeated, the tone calm but unyielding. This is your final warning. The fleet ignored the warning, of course. They had their orders. With the planet below, showing no visible defenses, the commander saw no reason to hesitate. He sent one of the ships down into the atmosphere, a simple reconnaissance mission to establish ground contact. The remaining ships hovered in orbit, their weapons at the ready. The Empire had done this 1,000 times before. It was standard procedure. But as the ship descended, something unexplainable happened. The crew on board lost contact with the rest of the fleet. Monitors flickered, instruments malfunctioned, and then, without warning, no explosion, no distress call. It was simply gone. The other ships scrambled to make sense of what had just occurred. Scanners swept the area, searching for debris, but there was nothing. It was as if the planet had swallowed the ship whole. For the first time in his career, The fleet commander hesitated. The warnings, the static, the disappearance, it didn't add up. Earth was supposed to be an easy target, yet something about it felt wrong. Before he could give the order to retreat, however, the signal came again. But this time, it wasn't a warning. "We gave you a choice," the voice said. "Now, you will see why Earth is not yours to take." And then, chaos erupted. Out of nowhere, the sky around the fleet ignited with flashes of light and energy. It wasn't a fleet of human ships. Earth didn't have that capability. It was something else entirely. Massive beams of electromagnetic force swept through the fleet, disabling ships in an instant. Their shields flickered and failed. Their weapons systems went offline. It wasn't an attack in the traditional sense. It was more like the planet itself had come alive, using the very fabric of space to strike back. One by one, the Imperial ships fell silent. Crews were left powerless, their technology rendered useless. The fleet commander, watching his ships crumble around him, could do nothing but stare at the planet below, now glowing faintly with an eerie blue light. And then, as suddenly as it had begun, the attack stopped. The remaining Imperial ships drifted in orbit, powerless as a final message was transmitted to them. Earth is not a battlefield. Earth is not yours. Go back to your empire and tell them what you've seen. Tell them what happens when you don't listen. What was left of the fleet limped back to Imperial space, carrying with them tales of a planet unlike any they had ever encountered. The official report was vague, filled with excuses about unforeseen complications and unusual planetary phenomena. But the truth spread quickly among the ranks. Earth wasn't just another target. It was something else, something dangerous. Imperial command, however, wasn't ready to give up. Earth's defiance was an insult to the Empire's authority, and such insolence couldn't be tolerated. A larger fleet was prepared, this time with the Empire's most advanced technology and most experienced commanders. They would show Earth the full might of the Galactic Empire. They would make an example of it. But as the fleet began its journey, rumors started to spread. Soldiers spoke in hushed tones about Earth's strange defenses, about how the planet seemed to fight back in ways no one could explain. Some said it was the humans themselves, that they were hiding technology far beyond what the Empire had seen. Others claimed Earth was protected by something ancient, something the Empire couldn't hope to understand. Whatever the truth was, one thing was clear: Earth was not what it seemed. The fleet approached the planet, its weapons charged, its crews prepared for battle. But deep down, every soldier and officer felt a growing sense of unease. They had conquered countless worlds, faced every kind of resistance imaginable. Yet Earth was different. Earth had warned them. And for the first time in their history, the Empire was beginning to wonder if it had made a mistake. The ships entered Earth's orbit, their commanders ready to strike. But just as they prepared to unleash their firepower, the warning came again, louder and clearer than ever before. Stay away from Earth. And this time, even the most hardened soldiers couldn't help but feel a chill run down their spine. The Empire's top minds couldn't let it go. Earth was a small planet, insignificant in the grand scheme of things, but it had humiliated the Galactic Empire twice. Scout ships lost, a fleet disabled. This was not just a tactical issue anymore. It was personal. The Emperor himself was furious, demanding answers that no one could provide. How could a species so primitive, one barely scratching the surface of space exploration, stand against the most advanced military force in the galaxy. The Empire had to know. And more importantly, it had to show the galaxy that defiance came with consequences. The task fell to Admiral Carrion, a seasoned veteran known for his ruthless efficiency and unflinching loyalty to the Empire. He wasn't one to entertain myths or speculation. To him, Earth was just another problem to be solved. He studied the reports, analyzed the telemetry, and dismissed the stories of Earth fighting back as superstition fueled by fear and incompetence. "Planets don't fight," he had said bluntly during a briefing. "People do. And people are predictable." But despite his confidence, the reports unsettled him. The missing scout ships, the electromagnetic attacks, the eerie blue light that seemed to emanate from the planet, none of it fit the Empire's understanding of how a pre-FTL civilization operated. Earth had no known energy weapons, no advanced shielding systems, nothing that could explain what had happened. And yet, 2 missions had ended in disaster. Carrion wasn't superstitious, but he wasn't arrogant either. He ordered his fleet outfitted with experimental countermeasures and doubled the size of his forces. If Earth wanted a fight, he would give them one. As the fleet prepared for departure, whispers of Earth's defiance spread like wildfire through the ranks. Soldiers spoke of the warning's calm, almost human in tone, yet undeniably chilling. They spoke of the fleet that had been torn apart in an instant, of ships vanishing without a trace. Some claimed Earth was protected by an ancient force, something older than the Empire itself. Others believed the humans were hiding advanced technology, perhaps even weapons capable of manipulating space-time. Most dismissed these stories as nonsense, but a sense of unease lingered. This mission felt different, even to the most hardened veterans. Meanwhile, on Earth, life continued as usual, or so it seemed. Humanity had seen the scout ship, had detected the fleet in orbit. They knew the Empire was watching, waiting. But humanity had learned patience. For centuries, they had been the underdogs, adapting, innovating, and surviving in the face of every challenge. They had seen wars, natural disasters, and even near extinction. What the Galactic Empire saw as weakness was, in fact, humanity's greatest strength, resilience. The warning sent to the Empire wasn't a bluff. It was a promise. Earth was ready, but not in the way the Empire imagined. Humanity's defenses weren't based on brute force or advanced technology. Instead, they were rooted in something far more profound: understanding. For decades, scientists and engineers had studied the universe's laws, pushing the boundaries of what was possible. They had discovered ways to harness energy fields, manipulate gravitational waves, and even disrupt quantum structures. These discoveries weren't shared with the rest of the galaxy, not out of selfishness, but out of necessity. Humanity had learned the hard way that knowledge in the wrong hands could lead to catastrophe. The warning was humanity's first and only attempt to avoid conflict. They didn't want war, but they weren't afraid of it either. If the Empire chose to ignore the warning, humanity was prepared to defend itself. Not with armies or fleets, but with the very fabric of the universe. They called it the Shield, though it was far more than that. It was a network of satellites and ground-based installations, all working together to create a protective field around Earth. This field wasn't just a barrier, it was an extension of Earth's will, capable of disabling ships, scrambling communications, and even bending light itself. To the Empire, it would seem like magic. To humanity, it was science. as Admiral Carrion's fleet entered Earth's solar system. Every crew member knew the stakes. This wasn't just another mission. It was a test of the Empire's dominance. Failure was not an option. The fleet moved with precision, their weapons charged and their shields raised. Carrion had no intention of underestimating Earth. He had studied the reports, listened to the warnings, and prepared accordingly. But even he couldn't shake the feeling that something was watching them, something far beyond his comprehension. The fleet approached Earth's orbit, their instruments scanning the planet below. At first, everything seemed normal. The planet's atmosphere was rich in oxygen and nitrogen. There were no visible defenses, no signs of advanced technology. It was exactly as the reports had described, a primitive world ripe for conquest. And yet, the static was back. Communications between the ships were garbled, their sensors picking up strange energy readings that defied explanation. It was as if the planet itself was alive, observing them, waiting. Carrion ordered a reconnaissance team to descend to the surface. Their mission was simple: establish ground contact and assess the situation. The shuttle departed without incident, disappearing into the planet's atmosphere. Minutes turned into hours, and then into silence. The shuttle didn't return. No distress signal, no wreckage. Just like before, it was as if the planet had swallowed it whole. Frustration turned to anger as Carrion realized they were being toyed with. He ordered a full-scale assault, his ships unleashing a barrage of energy weapons on the planet below. But as the first blasts struck the atmosphere, they were absorbed by an invisible field. The energy dissipated harmlessly, leaving the surface untouched. Carrion's fleet fired again, this time with even greater force, but the result was the same. The planet remained unscathed. Then, the message came. It was the same voice, the same warning, but this time, there was an edge to it, a cold, unyielding finality. "You were warned," the voice said. "You chose not to listen. Now, you will understand." The blue light returned, radiating from the planet's surface and spreading outward like a tidal wave. The fleet systems failed one by one, their weapons and shields rendered useless. Ships drifted helplessly, their crews scrambling to regain control. Carrion watched in disbelief as his fleet, the pride of the Empire, was dismantled without a single shot fired. And then, as the light reached his flagship, he felt a sudden, overwhelming clarity. Earth wasn't just a planet. It was something more, something the Empire could never hope to conquer. As the light faded, the fleet was left adrift, their power gone and their pride shattered. And for the first time in his life, Admiral Carrion felt fear not for himself, but for the Empire. Earth had given them a choice, and they had made the wrong one. The silence was oppressive. The once mighty fleet of the Galactic Empire hung motionless in the void, shadows of their former selves. The blue light had subsided, leaving the ships intact but stripped of their power, their pride, and their sense of invincibility. Inside the flagship, Admiral Carrion stood in the center of the command deck, his face a mask of controlled fury. His crew avoided his gaze, their fear of his wrath matched only by the growing unease gnawing at their own minds. Every attempt to reboot the systems failed. Communications were dead, weapons were offline, and even life support seemed to be operating on borrowed time. It was as if the fleet had been reduced to relics, ghosts adrift in the unforgiving expanse of space. Carrion's thoughts raced. He had never been in a situation where sheer military might had proven useless. The Empire's doctrine was built on domination through overwhelming force, but Earth had rendered that philosophy meaningless in a matter of moments. And yet, Carrion's determination was unbroken. There had to be a way to outmaneuver this primitive world. The Emperor's voice echoed in his mind, a reminder of what failure would mean not just for the mission, but for him personally. His career, his honor, his life, all hinged on finding a solution. But Earth seemed to have anticipated every move. The ship's instruments detected faint, intermittent signals emanating from the planet's surface patterns that didn't match any known form of communication. They were too structured to be natural phenomena, yet too alien to be deciphered. Was it a taunt? A warning? Or something worse? Carrion didn't know, and the uncertainty only added to his growing frustration. He ordered a scan of the fleet, searching for any trace of sabotage or infiltration, but the results were inconclusive. Whatever had disabled their systems wasn't physical. It was something far more advanced. Down on Earth, humanity watched the fleet through a network of satellites and ground-based observatories. The warning had been delivered, and Earth's defense grid remained on high alert. But not everyone was convinced the crisis was over. In underground bunkers and command centers, the world's leaders debated their next move. Some argued for a show of strength, a final push to drive the Empire away for good. Others cautioned against further escalation, fearing it would provoke a retaliatory strike. And then there were those who questioned whether the Empire's intentions were truly hostile. After all, the fleet hadn't fired again since their initial attack had failed. Perhaps they were reconsidering their approach. But humanity wasn't about to take chances. Scientists and engineers worked tirelessly to monitor the energy fields surrounding the planet, ready to activate additional countermeasures if necessary. Soldiers stood at the ready, their weapons trained on the skies. Civilians were urged to remain calm, though unease rippled through the population. Humanity had never faced a threat of this magnitude before, and while their ingenuity had given them an edge, the battle was far from over. Back aboard the flagship, Carrion made a decision that surprised even himself. He ordered a small reconnaissance team to deploy in a stealth craft, the only vessel that appeared to be functional. The team's mission was simple: infiltrate Earth's atmosphere, locate the source of the planet's defenses, and report back with actionable intelligence. It was a gamble, but Carrion knew they were out of options. If they stayed adrift, they were vulnerable. If they retreated, they would return to the Empire in disgrace. The reconnaissance team was their last hope. The stealth craft launched without incident, its cloaking systems shielding it from detection. Or so they thought. As the craft descended toward the planet, its crew marveled at the sight below: vast oceans glimmering under sunlight, sprawling cities connected by intricate networks of lights, and untamed wilderness that seemed to stretch endlessly. Earth was beautiful, but it was also deceptive. The crew couldn't shake the feeling that the planet was watching them, waiting for them to make a mistake. As the craft approached its target, a remote installation in the middle of a dense forest, its sensors picked up an energy spike. The crew barely had time to react before their systems were overwhelmed by the same blue light that had disabled the fleet. The craft spiraled out of control, crashing into the forest with a deafening roar. The crew survived, but their comms were down, and the wreckage offered little in the way of protection. They were stranded deep in enemy territory, with no way to call for help. Back on the flagship, Carrion waited anxiously for word from the reconnaissance team. Hours passed, with no response, and his patience wore thin. He couldn't shake the feeling that they were being played, that every move they made was being countered by an opponent who was always one step ahead. But how was that possible? How could a single planet, isolated and primitive, outmaneuver the mightiest empire in the galaxy? The answer, Carrion realized, might lie not in Earth's technology, but in its people. Humanity's ability to adapt, to think creatively, to turn weaknesses into strengths. These were qualities the Empire had long dismissed as irrelevant. The Empire valued conformity, obedience, and brute force. But Earth's defiance suggested that there was another way to wage war, one that the Empire had never considered. The realization unsettled Carrion more than he cared to admit. For the first time, he began to wonder if the Empire's approach to domination was flawed. If Earth could resist them, what did that say about the Empire's ability to maintain control over its vast territory? And if other worlds learned of Earth's defiance, how long would it be before rebellion spread across the galaxy? But these thoughts were fleeting. Carrion was a soldier, and his loyalty to the Empire was absolute. Doubts would have to wait. For now, his focus was on survival. He ordered the fleet to begin manual repairs, hoping to restore enough functionality to retreat if necessary. But even as his engineers worked tirelessly, Carrion knew the odds were stacked against them. The Empire didn't retreat. To do so would invite ridicule and rebellion. And yet, staying meant facing an enemy they didn't understand, one who had already proven capable of dismantling their forces without breaking a sweat. As the hours dragged on, the tension aboard the flagship reached a breaking point. The crew, once confident in their superiority, now whispered of Earth's power in hushed tones. Some spoke of the blue light as if it were alive, a sentient force protecting the planet. Others speculated that humanity had allies, ancient beings who had chosen Earth as their sanctuary. Carrion dismissed these rumors as nonsense, but he couldn't deny the fear in his crew's eyes. And then, without warning, the lights on the bridge flickered. A low hum filled the air, growing louder with each passing second. Carrion barked orders, demanding answers, but none came. The blue light returned, this time spreading through the ship's corridors like a living thing. Crew members froze in place, their eyes wide with terror. And as the light reached the bridge, Carrion realized they had underestimated Earth once again. This wasn't just a warning. It was the beginning of something far more dangerous. The blue light engulfed the flagship in a cascading wave, sending chills through every crew member as it pulsed in an unnatural rhythm. The hum intensified, reverberating in their chests, as if the ship itself was alive and reacting to the presence of this force. Admiral Carrion gripped the railing tightly, his usually unwavering composure cracking under the pressure. He could feel it, deep in his core. This was no mere energy field. It was intelligent, calculating, and utterly alien in a way that defied his understanding. Suddenly, the light coalesced into a single point at the center of the bridge, hovering in midair. It shimmered like a living star, pulsating with a deliberate, almost mocking tempo. The crew stared, frozen, unsure whether to move or even breathe. Then, the shimmering light expanded outward, forming an image, an unmistakable projection of Earth. Its continents, oceans, and swirling clouds seemed to mock the fleet's impotence. A voice, calm yet resonant, echoed through the bridge. It spoke in the Galactic standard, but its tone carried an undeniable human edge. "You were warned," the voice said, each word striking like a hammer. "Earth is not yours to conquer. Leave now while you still can." Carrion's jaw clenched as his pride battled against the rising panic in his chest. He straightened, forcing his voice to remain steady. Who are you to issue such ultimatums? You are but one planet. The Galactic Empire spans thousands of systems. We do not bow to primitives. The image of Earth shimmered, the light flickering for a moment before reforming into something else. It was a figure humanoid, but surrounded by an aura of shifting light and energy. The face was indistinct, as if it belonged to no one and everyone at once. The voice returned, colder now. Primitives, you call us. Yet here you are, powerless at our mercy. Your empire thrives on domination, on exploiting the weak. But Earth has never been weak. It is you who have underestimated us. Carrion took a step forward, his fists clenched. You think this is over? That this display will frighten us into submission? The Empire does not retreat. You will regret this arrogance. The figure tilted its head, as if amused. You still don't understand. This isn't a negotiation. Your fleet is already lost. And now, you leave us no choice but to show you why. Before Carrion could respond, the light surged outward, enveloping the entire bridge. Crew members cried out, shielding their eyes, but there was no pain, no heat, only an overwhelming sense of being watched, judged. When the light receded, it left behind silence and something far more chilling. The ship's systems, which had been flickering back to life moments before, were now completely dead. Even the emergency lighting failed, plunging the crew into darkness. And then came the noise, a low mechanical groan that seemed to originate from deep within the ship. It was unlike anything they had ever heard, a sound that carried with it an unsettling feeling of decay, of something ancient and vengeful awakening. Carrion's command deck remained shrouded in blackness, save for the faint blue glow now visible through the viewport. But this time, the light wasn't coming from Earth. It was coming from the Empire's fleet. One by one, the disabled ships began to pulse with the same eerie glow, as if they had been infected. From his vantage point, Carrion watched helplessly as their hulls began to shift and warp, the sleek designs of Imperial engineering distorting into grotesque, jagged forms. It was as if the ships themselves were being rewritten, their purpose twisted into something unrecognizable. His mind raced for answers, but none came. Whatever Earth had unleashed, it was spreading and fast. Meanwhile, on the surface of Earth, humanity was not idle. In secretive command centers scattered across the globe, military leaders, scientists, and strategists monitored the unfolding chaos. They had expected retaliation, had braced for the full wrath of the Empire, but this was beyond even their most pessimistic projections. The phenomenon affecting the fleet wasn't entirely under their control. The defense grid had been activated to protect Earth, but something within it had grown beyond its original design. It was almost as if the planet itself had become part of the system, feeding its own energy into the defense mechanisms, amplifying their power in unpredictable ways. This realization sparked heated debates among the human leadership. Some argued to deactivate the grid, fearing it might escalate the conflict even further or spiral out of their control entirely. Others believed it was too late, that whatever had been awakened would not rest until the threat was neutralized. But the voices that carried the most weight were those of the scientists who had developed the grid in the first place. They urged caution, warning that shutting it down now could leave Earth vulnerable to counterattack or worse, trigger an even more catastrophic reaction. As the arguments raged on, strange phenomena began to occur across the planet. In cities, Power grids flickered erratically, and strange auroras danced in the skies, even where such displays were unheard of. In the wilderness, animals behaved unusually, gathering in massive, silent herds as if sensing something profound. Even the oceans weren't spared, with deep-sea sensors picking up seismic activity that couldn't be explained by tectonic movements. It was as if the entire planet was holding its breath, waiting for something monumental to happen. Back aboard the flagship, Carrion faced a mutiny. His officers, once loyal and disciplined, were on the verge of panic. Some demanded an immediate retreat, even if it meant abandoning their comrades. Others, driven by desperation, suggested surrendering outright. But Carrion would hear none of it. His pride and the weight of the Empire's expectations blinded him to the reality of their situation. He refused to believe that a single planet could outmatch them, that the Empire's might could be undone by what he still stubbornly considered mere primitives. And then the final twist revealed itself. A sudden transmission crackled through the ship's comm system, bypassing all the usual security protocols. It wasn't the calm, calculated voice they had heard before. This voice was human, raw with urgency and fear. "This is a message to the Galactic Empire," it began. "If you're hearing this, it means our grid has entered its final phase. We didn't want this, but you forced our hand. You should have left when you had the chance. Now it's too late." Then, in a moment that defied all logic, the grid spoke. Not through human language, but through a series of pulses and patterns that scientists quickly recognized as a code. It wasn't an attack, it was communication. The grid, or whatever it had become, was trying to reach out. Deciphering the message became humanity's top priority. In the meantime, a growing sense of unease spread among the population. Was this entity a savior, or had they unleashed something far beyond their comprehension? In the hours that followed, the message was decoded. The grid's communication was simple, yet profound. It wasn't just defending Earth. It was issuing a warning of its own. The words translated to a single phrase that echoed through the minds of those who read it. "Prepare for what comes next." While humanity grappled with the implications of this message, far beyond Earth's orbit, something stirred in the void. The remnants of the Galactic Empire's fleet weren't entirely gone. A few damaged ships drifted aimlessly, their crews left in stunned disbelief. But it wasn't the humans' grid that reclaimed them. A new force emerged, one that neither Earth nor the Empire had anticipated. Shadowy vessels, larger and more advanced than anything recorded in galactic history, began to appear. They moved silently, their forms blending with the blackness of space, but their presence was undeniable. Back on Earth, the tension reached its peak. Satellites detected the arrival of these unknown ships, their trajectory clear. They were heading straight for the planet. Whatever humanity had unleashed, it had drawn attention from beyond the known galaxy. Earth was no longer just a target. It was now a battleground in a conflict far larger than anyone had imagined. As the shadowy fleet closed in, the grid pulsed with renewed energy. It wasn't afraid. If anything, it seemed to welcome the challenge. Across the globe, humanity braced itself, uncertain of what was to come. The grid, now fully awakened, had become Earth's first line of defense. But as the alien ships approached, a final twist revealed itself. The shadowy fleet didn't attack. Instead, they stopped just beyond Earth's orbit, as if waiting. Moments later, a single, smaller vessel broke away from the formation, descending toward the planet. It hovered just above the atmosphere, emitting a signal that Earth's grid recognized immediately. It was a request not for war, but for dialogue. Humanity's leaders faced an impossible decision. The grid seemed ready to annihilate the intruders, but what if they came in peace? What if destroying them triggered an even greater conflict? Ultimately, it was decided to respond to the signal. A broadcast was sent, welcoming the emissary to speak. The alien ship responded instantly, projecting an image into Earth's skies that could be seen from every corner of the planet. The figure that appeared was humanoid, but its features were unlike anything human. Its voice carried a calm authority that silenced the world. "We are not your enemies," it began, "but we have seen what you're capable of. Your actions have disrupted a balance that has stood for millennia. What you call survival, others will call provocation. The choice is now yours. Will you stand alone, or will you join us in preparing for the storm you have unleashed?" The words hung in the air, leaving humanity with more questions than answers. The shadowy fleet remained in orbit, an ominous reminder of the vast unknown. The grid, silent but still active, seemed to approve of the exchange, as if it had anticipated this outcome. Earth's leaders realized that their greatest battle might not be against invaders, but against their own fears and the choices they would make in the days to come. As the alien emissary's image faded, one truth became clear: humanity had crossed a threshold. They were no longer just a single, isolated species. Their actions had made them a force to be reckoned with, a player in a game far larger than they could have imagined. But with that power came responsibility and a chilling understanding that the warning they had given to the Galactic Empire was only the beginning. The days following the alien emissary's message were unlike anything humanity had ever experienced. The world was no longer focused on the divisions that had long defined it. Instead, there was a collective realization that Earth was now part of something much larger, a galaxy teetering on the edge of a new era. Governments across the planet united in a way that felt surreal, putting aside rivalries in the face of this monumental shift. The shadowy fleet remained stationed just beyond Earth's orbit, neither retreating nor advancing, a constant reminder of the fragile peace that now hung in the balance. The emissary's warning reverberated through every discussion. Humanity had disrupted a balance it didn't understand. Scientists and historians scrambled to decipher what that balance could have been, scouring ancient records and theoretical models. Could Earth's defensive grid have awakened something buried deep within the galaxy's history? Or was the balance more about power, about who wielded it, and who was willing to challenge those who had always claimed it? Meanwhile, the grid itself began to change. What had once been a tool of planetary defense now seemed to evolve daily, its patterns of energy growing more intricate. It no longer merely responded to threats, it observed, adapted, and learned. Some theorized that the grid had become sentient in a way that defied traditional definitions. It didn't just protect Earth. It seemed to anticipate the needs of humanity, as if it were preparing them for something far greater. This newfound intelligence didn't come without complications. The grid occasionally activated systems that humans hadn't even known existed, uncovering buried technologies and structures that predated recorded history. These discoveries raised unsettling questions. Had humanity truly created the grid, or had they merely stumbled upon something ancient, something that had been dormant until now? The more the grid revealed, the more its origins seemed to blur, and with it, humanity's understanding of its place in the cosmos. The shadowy fleet finally broke its eerie stillness when the emissary returned. This time, the alien vessel descended into Earth's atmosphere, landing at a neutral site agreed upon by every major world power. A delegation of humans approached cautiously, their movements watched closely by the hovering grid. The emissary emerged from its vessel, calm and deliberate, and it addressed the crowd with the same commanding presence it had shown before. "You must understand," the emissary said, its voice resonating with a clarity that transcended language barriers. "What you have awakened is not a weapon, but a beacon, a signal that reaches far beyond this galaxy, to places you cannot yet fathom. There are forces in this universe older than time itself, and they have noticed you. What comes next will not be decided by the strength of your grid, but by the strength of your will." The words sent a ripple through the delegation and through humanity as a whole. The emissary offered no comfort, no assurances that Earth could simply rely on its newfound power. Instead, it posed a challenge to rise beyond fear and embrace the unknown with courage. It wasn't just about survival anymore. It was about evolution, about proving that humanity was more than the sum of its conflicts and struggles. As the emissary departed, humanity found itself at a crossroads. The warnings it had given to the Galactic Empire now felt small in comparison to what lay ahead. Earth wasn't just defending itself against invaders. It was stepping onto a stage where every choice carried unimaginable consequences. Yet, in the face of this uncertainty, something remarkable happened. Instead of retreating into panic or despair, humanity began to prepare not just with weapons or technology, but with a renewed sense of unity and purpose. The grid continued to guide them, though it remained enigmatic. Its pulses of energy often hinted at solutions to problems before scientists could fully understand the questions. It provided blueprints for advancements that pushed the boundaries of human knowledge, from faster-than-light communication to sustainable energy systems that could power entire continents. The grid seemed to be nudging humanity towards something, though its ultimate goal remained unclear. The shadowy fleet, still stationed in orbit, began to communicate more openly. It turned out that the beings aboard those vessels were not conquerors, but stewards of a delicate balance that had maintained peace among the galaxy's ancient civilizations. They had intervened not to destroy Earth, but to ensure that the disruption caused by the grid's activation didn't spiral out of control. They offered guidance, sharing knowledge of the broader galaxy while carefully avoiding interference in Earth's development. Over time, a fragile partnership emerged. Humanity learned of civilizations so old that their histories were written in the stars themselves, and of technologies that made even Earth's most advanced creations seem primitive. Yet, through it all, one truth stood out: Earth was unique. Its blend of resilience, creativity, and unpredictability made it unlike any other world in the galaxy. The emissary had been right. Humanity's will was its greatest strength. Years passed, and the storm the emissary had warned of finally arrived. It wasn't a single event, but a series of challenges that tested Earth in ways it had never been tested before. Rogue factions of the Galactic Empire sought revenge. Ancient cosmic phenomena threatened entire systems, and whispers of an even greater force lurking in the darkness grew louder. Yet, through it all, humanity stood firm. The grid, now fully integrated with humanity's efforts, became a symbol of hope. It wasn't just a tool of defense. It was a bridge connecting Earth to a galaxy that had once seemed unreachable. The grid's final transformation came in a moment of unparalleled crisis, when a powerful force threatened to collapse an entire sector of the galaxy. Instead of simply shielding Earth, the grid expanded outward, stabilizing the affected region and saving countless lives. In doing so, it revealed its true purpose, not as a weapon, but as a beacon of balance and unity. Humanity had given the galaxy one warning: to stay away from Earth. But in the end, Earth became a beacon that drew others closer, not out of fear, but out of admiration and respect. The story of humanity's defiance and resilience spread far and wide, inspiring others to rise above their own conflicts and limitations. Earth had become more than a planet. It was now a symbol of what was possible when courage and compassion worked hand in hand. As the years turned to decades, the shadowy fleet departed, leaving behind allies who had once been strangers and challenges that had once seemed insurmountable. Humanity continued to grow, not by conquering, but by connecting, building bridges to worlds and civilizations that had once been out of reach. The grid, though still present, became less of a mystery and more of a partner, its silent guidance shaping a future that was brighter than anyone could have imagined. In the end, the galaxy didn't just survive, it thrived. And at the heart of it all was Earth, a small blue planet that had dared to challenge the impossible, and, in doing so, had changed the course of history forever. Humanity's journey was far from over, but one thing was certain: they would face whatever came next with open eyes, open hearts, and an unshakable determination to create a better future for all.